Behind the Shades.
I am Tanya White, even though it's spelled Tanya. Tanya White. I hail from Louisville, Kentucky, in the United States. We are known for bourbon, Kentucky horse racing, and college sports. And so, if you know anything about college sports, we're either University of Louisville or University of Kentucky. You're either the red, Louisville, or the blue, Kentucky. So that is who I am. I am the oldest of three children, and I take that role seriously. Um, I have five nieces and nephews, and I am a grantee because I have a great nephew and a great niece and another great nephew on the way. And so I celebrate that role of auntie seriously too. I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated sorority. I have been writing all of my life. I was that student that I love to read and listen. I'll ask, are we going to do a book report? Because I got to write and, reflect on what I read. So I was that student, even though some of my friends hated me because I always wanted to do a book report. But I have been reading and writing. But I started writing professionally in 2005 after my mom died of lung cancer. That was my therapy to process everything. Because she was my last parent who died. Our father died 9 years before that. And it's a different when my father died because my mother was there to help us through the process. When our mother died, we always call ourselves, okay, we're orphans. And so we had to, even though I was 35 when my mom died, it's nothing like losing a parent, but losing the woman who gave you life literally knocks the life out of you. And so it took me a moment. And so I turned to writing to process everything that I had gone through because she was in the hospital for 5 straight months dealing with the lung cancer. So it was totally new to me. Primary caretaker, being the oldest, I had to make sure everything was still running at the household. So I was like operating on robot. And so after everything was finalized, I had to process everything and heal myself. So I turned to writing and started back then, I'm dating myself, websites, and we called them, instead of blogs, we called them e-newsletters. And so I launched my e-newsletters, Tanya's Tips for Today to Transform Your Tomorrow, because it was all based on my mom. She literally, how she got in the hospital, we thought, she was falling and something was wrong. But as she, a weekend turned to a week and week turned into 3 weeks, they found that she was at stage 4 lung cancer, and we didn't even know. So literally, it was like, live your life like it's golden, because you never know when life is going to change. So I started writing that weekly newsletter. It started with some of my friends in my church, and then they started passing it on. And like 6 months later, it was in several states. I was up to like hundreds of subscribers who I didn't know. And that is what encouraged me to write my first book and getting and launch into writing. So I've been writing professionally since 2005. I wrote my first book in 2007, and 8 books later, I have just released my 8th book called The Battle Behind My Smile in April 2022. And so that's a little bit about me. You can always go to my social media, Tanya White, and find out more, connect with me. But that's just a little bit about me in a nutshell.
Perfect. And thank you for sharing that. And that is quite the start. And I always like listening to that because when you hear someone's story of why they started something, that's when you get the hunger, you get the passion, you get everything. And for someone who's experienced recently, the last little while, year or so, 2 years, cancer was introduced into my family, not necessarily me, but someone in my family. And before that, I had one of my friends, he was working and he collapsed at work and he was pronounced dead.
Wow.
So when at least for me, and it sounds like the same thing for you and for everyone who's watching, when you experience death that close, that
Mm,
impactful, you take a step back and you realize this doesn't really mean that much.
yes,
This is not really that important. This, why is it causing me that amount of stress? You
yes,
begin to reevaluate your life because you work, you work, you work, you please, you please, you please. Then just like that, gone. Now, when you experience all of that and you turn to writing, how much of you, Tanya, did you put into your writing at that point? And how much of yourself do you still put into your writing today?
well, for people who know me, I say name stands for truth. So I do not know how to be anything but myself. So all of my writing is 100% me, my personality, my philosophies, even my evolution, because even if you can see how Bob, not only as a writer, but as for my first book, my eighth book. And so I write from real experiences. I can't write unless it's from real life and it's who I am. And so all of my projects are 100 me. And like you said, death makes you reevaluate. And so, and that's why my eighth book came, and we're going to talk about that. That came in the midst of another gut wrenching loss of my fiance, who I thought right now we should have been living happily ever after. And so, but in the midst of after dating 6 months, 16 months, and then me officially relocating to his city because we dated long distance. Um, the same week, he got sick and took him to the hospital, and come to find out, his prostate cancer that he had been battling and surviving successfully for almost 15 years had come back in a very aggressive, inoperable form. And so before we found out all of that, he was very much a proponent of my writing, everything that I did, but he loved my writing and asked me when I was going to write another book. And literally a week before we found out about his cancer, I shared with him the title, The Battle Behind My Smile, because that's how we met, um, through a dating site. And he's like, OMG, that beautiful smile. And I responded back, oh, you have a wonderful smile too, because it was rare for men to have photos on that site who smiled, and then just his personality and all his pictures, he was a smiler like me. And so when I shared with him the title, a week before we got the devastating news, he was like, "Ooh, sweetie, that's a deep title. I know this book is going to be good." And then I was, was totally going to write about something else, about my professional. And then a week later, it's like, oh, I'm really going through a fresh battle. Having to, they gave him 6 to 12 months to live, and literally he died in 6 weeks. Um, and so I was faced with, all right, not only am I a city, I've left my job of 20 years to happily be with this man. We're going to start a life in a new city by myself in his house, that we had wonderful memories as we dated. Um, and then I'm faced with closing that chapter, uh, you know, waiting for the funeral, dealing, engaging with his family, who are also experiencing a loss, because the day before Stefan, my fiance, died, his dad died. So that family's not only dealing with one loss, but two, planning two funerals. So I'm dealing with my, and not being able to really fully, I'm like, okay, I don't know what to do. Um, but it was such a time, and you talk about death, helps you reevaluate each one. And I reflected on this in the book. When my dad died, I was in another emotional state. And my mom died, I had evolved and matured. And then when Stefan died, it showed me that I have really evolved. And not only because I call his death, it was a peaceful devastation. It was peaceful because he was in excruciating pain for 6 weeks. It was like, I don't know if any of you have dealt with somebody who's had cancer and they told them there's nothing we can do, it's like an immediate pain comes over and the cancer just takes over. And so it was like one day he's, able to move around, and then a couple of days later, I mean, it's infecting his whole body. He can't even move, and he needed assistance. And so it helps you to say what is really important at this stage of life. And then readjust if you're doing things not important that are not allowing you to spend time with family. And that's one thing, a blessing in the pandemic. It shut us down to really help us reevaluate, okay, what's really important. And so just coming off that, I was able to heal as I grieved, and shut down like I did with my dad's death, and not going to just robotic movements with my mom's death. I was able to still live and heal. Not to say I was not sad. I'm still sad, like to this day, but I still live life, and I live it with more intention and more fun, more laughter, and doing life, what is really important in my life. And so that's just, and I forgot the question, Terrain, but
No, that's okay, because you're expressing how you feel, right? And
yeah.
you've had your father, your mother, and your fiance pass.
Mm-hmm.
How much time in between the three deaths?
Yes. Okay. So when my father passed, I was 26 years old, and I was a daddy's girl through and through. People say my dad's name was Joe. They said your mom should have named you Josephine, because I'm just like her. But I was daddy's girl, so that was hard on itself. But like I said, my mother was there to help me, my brother, and my sisters process that. When my mom died, it was 9 years after my dad died, so I was 35. I had grown through some things, and I was more mature, and I wouldn't say that I accepted my mom's death and diagnosis, because she was my mom. And like I said, it's different. I was a daddy's girl, but losing your mom who gave you life, it literally knocked the wind out of me, and to the point where I went to a deep depression, and not knowing I was in a deep depression, because, that's taboo, especially with our culture. You got to keep going. You got to be strong and all this crap. But I was severely depressed, and like I had retreated from church and everything for about 8 years, and still not acknowledging that my mom's death was the reason why that was happening. So it was 9 years after my dad died that my mom died. And so she died in 2005. And so I met Stefan. We used to say it was our pandemic blessing, because we met a month before the world shut down. Okay. Literally a month. And then we dated for 16 months. So from 2005 to this is 2022. So that's 17 years after my mom died. So that's a lot of years. And then plus I'm just a little over 50. And if anybody knows milestones in your life, you have aha moments. So at 40, I had an aha moment. 50 is like, aha. And, you've lived more years than behind you than's in front of you. So you really have an aha moment. And so in those 17 years, and then able to deal with that, and even it was different, because when my mother got the diagnosis in the hospital, she was already deteriorating. And so we couldn't communicate with her, because the cancer had already taken, her mind, her ability to speak. So we couldn't have that verbal closure. With Stefan, and plus because he had dealt with it for so long, when we met, he was very honest from the beginning, that, he had cancer, blah, blah, blah. He was overcoming it. He has had several rounds of chemo throughout, but he was healthy. Literally asked me, is that something I could deal with? And so I shared with him, my parents' journey, because my dad was sick with diabetes and my mom cancer. So we connected on that end. And so when we found out about his diagnosis from the doctors, me and Stefan were able to have conversations about not only what we were going to endure, but life after him. And it's something very special, even though you never want anyone to pass away. But having that knowledge that this is the ultimate, you don't know when. They gave him 6 to 12 months. In 6 weeks, he was gone. But we had that serious conversations, what life was going to be like after he passed, not only for me, but what he desired me to continue to have a relationship with his family, particularly his mom, to continue my life. He told me specifically, do not stop living after I pass away. And he's like, eventually, but not too soon, he said, start dating again because you are a wonderful woman. So when I reflect, when I was writing The Battle Behind My Smile and dwelling on my 3 significant losses at 3 significant times, that's why even when he died, and I was telling people, I said, I'm peacefully devastated. Stated, yes, but I'm at peace. For one, the whole 16 months of dating, it was absolutely wonderful. I think we had about 3 arguments, even though we was when we was upset with one another. It didn't last that long. We didn't hold grudges, and I guess because we was of a certain age, so it was a lot of communication. We were all on the same page. And then when we got the devastating news, was able to have serious, straightforward conversations about what he wanted. If his health took a turn for worse, and he didn't want to be resuscitated. He told us why. We had to accept it, and press on, not to have those arguments. That was his life, and that's what he wanted. We had to deal with it, but also what he wanted from us as caretakers. He didn't want us to treat him like, even when he couldn't do anything. He said, when I can't do anything, please don't treat me as an infant. Allow me to still have some leeway and say. So conversations were very good. And now that and I'm talking about it now, there was healing. That's where the healing started. So when he died, because I was home when he died and just left his bedside to get some water. And then I came back and I was like, I don't hear his oxygen machine. And then I'm looking at him, and then, he had gone. And so even to the point of death, he was still a gentleman because he left when I wasn't in the room. And so I think having that conversation and me reflecting over the 3 losses really helped me to understand my grief journey, helped me to deal with Stefan's grief in a healthy, straightforward manner without suppressing any of my feelings, and then able to live day by day, cherishing his memory, but also moving on without guilt. Because sometimes when we die and we're living our life, sometimes, we feel guilty because we're living our life and they're not here. So that is what this journey and this season of grief has helped me to become as a person.
So let me ask you, you've had the first, you've had the second, you've had the third, and you've taken us through the journey of each of them. And it seems respectfully that you have been able to construct and navigate your life in a certain way where each time tragedy has struck in you, you didn't let it keep you down for too long. When you had your father, it was new. It's like anything, right? It's like when you ride the bike the first time and you fall off and you scrape your knee, you cry, you cry, you cry, you cry. The second and third time now, not so much, because it's a little bit different. So once you've gone through 3, because many people have the 1, maybe 2, because the expectation is that any child should be burying their parents versus their parents burying the child.
Yeah, and listen, and that all of them died in their 50s. So my dad died when he was 51. Okay, so I'm 51. Trust me, I've had anxiety this whole year when I turned 51. I was like, oh God. passed when she was 58. Y'all, that is young. Stefan passed 5 months before his 60th birthday. So as I'm reflecting in this book, The Battle Behind My Smile, I really, in the introduction, I take everybody through that and what not only me dealing with healing and grieving in a healthy manner, but also my emotional triggers. I'm 50, about to turn 52 in December. And thinking in all of this, okay, daddy died at 51, mama died at 58, Stefan died at 59. Lord, am I going to make it? All that's going on in my mind. But even as I heal and grieve in a healthy, whole manner, the anxiety, because trust me, when Stefan died, I was like, oh God, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it to I don't even want to celebrate my birthday. But as I was honest with my feelings, and I'm still in therapy, because when my mom died, I did shut down and literally had to go. That was my first time going to therapy. And so I found out that I don't have to hold all of that grief in. I don't have to be superwoman. Even, I'm the oldest and I've always been programmed to take care of everybody else. That's your job. But I found out when I don't take care of me, there's no possible way that I can honestly and fully be anybody else. So I am my first priority now to be healthy, to be whole, both mentally, emotionally, physically. And that helps me to help others. People look at me who have followed me and Stefan's journey. They just knew that was like, we're going to a wedding. But so when everybody got the news, especially social media, it was like, what is going on? But to see me, how I navigated this last year and even pressing through to write this book, because that's a whole nother conversation in itself. It helps me to help other people. And for me to be a model of, yes, grief it hurts, it's painful, it is the most gut-wrenching thing else. But I want you to see and know that with support, friends, therapy, you can make it past the hurt and you don't have to shut down. You will hurt, you will cry, and that's okay. Give yourself permission, but know that you can keep living a full, fun, and productive life after loss.
Do you feel, now that you mentioned how the three deaths occurred in their 50s, do you find this upcoming decade in your 50s to be difficult? If so, in what ways?
Okay, so before Stefan's death, yes, it was very difficult. And me and my brother have this conversation. We like, Lord have mercy. Both mama and daddy died. Are we gonna make it? But after Stefan died, it is not difficult. It's more, I would say I'm more determined to be in the best shape that I am. And that means when I have to eat healthy and exercise, even though I love me some Oreos and some Doritos, after a certain age, it doesn't agree with your body. And you have to get up and you got to move, you got to exercise, get some cardio, and then also being healthy emotionally. That's why I stay in therapy. I stay surrounded, doing things that I love. Writing is my therapy also for me. And then helping other writers. That's what I've learned in this last year. That is my mission, my mandate, is to help other people tell their story. Because as I help other people tell their story, I am receiving more healing. Because when I'm reading, especially in this book, Battle Behind My Smile, is an anthology. It's 17 other authors. And so I am literally coordinating this project after a month after I came home. And I told the Lord, I was like, I'm not doing this project. I'm going home, sit on my couch, eat me some Oreos and Doritos, and be in my feelings. Yeah, that's going to happen. And then I found myself, doing this project, calling for authors. And I know it had meaning because when I read the 17 other stories in the midst of my grief, in the midst of adjusting, of returning back home, and then choosing not to go back to my job, because I was like, nope, I'm taking this year to heal, because I had grown to the point where, yes, working and having an income is important, but it's more important to deal with your emotional health. So I chose for a year. I said, I'm gonna give myself a year. I'm not going to work because I'm gonna heal. And in that year, what happened was I launched me a whole publishing company. And listen, I had,
Congratulations.
yes. And so I had been writing, I said, for professionally since 2005, helping other authors throughout that time while working my full-time job in education. I love doing both. But this last year has taught me, going back to what you said, when you lose somebody, you reevaluate. So I had to reevaluate what was important. Thank God, I've always been professionally responsible. So I had savings. The pandemic, because we couldn't go anywhere, had me stack up even more savings. So I was able to live and get my needs met this past year and not worry about, oh, I need to go find a job. No, I needed to heal. And that was the best decision that I made, because in that, another level of who I am and what I'm supposed to be doing literally has birth. And so in 10 months, I started the company, S&T Publishing, to first publish The Battle Behind My Smile. And so I had 17 other authors in this book. And so that's 17 other clients who will eventually do their own books. And then I had 2 more other clients in those 10 months who launched books. So that's 19 people. And I have 2 more clients is going to release her debut book in October and one in January. So in the midst of my grief, you guys, when I said I wasn't going to work because I needed to heal, there was a blessing. And that's why I call my grief has been a gift, because it has not only allowed me to heal freely and heal without putting, parameters. Oh, you can only cry this much, you can only do this, and then you got to keep going. No, it has allowed me to heal completely and totally. And then also not only birth a book, The Battle Behind My Smile, but birth 2 authors who have put out their projects, and 2 more authors in 10 months. I literally done more in 10 months while I was grieving and living my life, like Stefan said, after he died, than I had done since I've been in the book industry. And so I want to leave that nugget of wisdom with somebody who is, if you're not grappling with grief, you will, because grief is inevitable. We're all going to go through some type of devastating loss in our life, because it's part of the life cycle. But what I want you to know is that, first of all, you heal and you grieve how you want to. There is no pattern. And there's no stages of grief, because the stage says, I've gotten over that one and then I can go move on. No, it's waves of grief, because sometimes you're going to experience anger, sadness, joy, resentment, and anger again, all in the same emotion. And that's okay. That's part of how you grieve. So I want people to know that it's okay to grieve, and it's okay for you to give yourself permission to grieve. And then also want you to know that while you grieving, don't stop living. Continue to live. Continue to live at the pace that you can't. Because there's some days, it is just my goal just to get out of bed and put a smile on my face. And I give myself that goal. There's nobody can tell me that can't be a goal for me, because they're not knowing what I'm going through. And what days are triggering and what memories are coming to mind. Oh, last year this time we were doing this and that. So sometimes it's just to get out of bed, put a smile on my face, and binge watch reality TV. That is my day. And that is part of my healing.
And I want to say, on top of that, you're right. And I love how you turned it from use your grief into a gift, because there are many situations that we can grieve about, and we will grieve because living is hard enough. But you want to take whatever it is that you're going through and eventually turn it into a gift. So when you mentioned grief to gift, and now you had the conversation with your family, and it's like, oh Lord, am I going to survive my 50s? But you've accepted it, you've come to terms with it, and you've turned it into a gift. Tanya, where do you see yourself going forward now when it comes to helping others who are in a situation like yourself or who look at you and say, wow, look how strong she was. I want to be just as strong for my future situations as she is.
Yes. So first thing I tell people is my strength is never going to be your strength, because the grief that I go through is going to be completely different than the grief that you go through, but it's still going to be grief. So what I want people to know is to embrace your own grief journey how you want to. Now, remember, I told you that at each stage, when I lost my daddy, my mama, and stepmom, it was totally different. And so how I grieved with my dad, I was 26. I was a daddy's girl. Plus, I was a rebel. That's a whole nother conversation. And so, y'all talking about reality TV, honey. Let me tell you something. TT was somebody to experience. That's my alter ego, my ratchet alter ego. So when my dad died, I was in TT mode. I was mad at the world. I was mad at God, because first of all, how you gonna take my daddy away? And he's only 51. That is young. And he died. He was on dialysis, but it was just like any other day. He went to dialysis. He drove himself to dialysis, first of all. He was that man. And then we get a call to meet them at the hospital. And anybody who's had a family member or who's on dialysis know that is the closest to death when you're doing dialysis that you will get. And so anything happened. And so it just so happened that was the day it happened, that something went wrong and he passed away. And so I remember, like, that was like 20 something years ago. And I still remember me and my mom they taking us to this little room. And I'm like, why are they taking us to this room? Why are we just not in the family waiting area? And me and my mom are standing right there, and my mom's still in. Okay, now, I'll talk about this in the book too. My mom had just turned 50 a month before my dad passed away. I had turned 56 months before Stefan passed away. So I'm writing this book, reflecting, and I'm thinking, we have similar battles. And now I understand why my mom was anxious, because for one, she had been married to my dad for 27 years. That was from back then. They went from their house to married house. So that was her whole adult life. And at 50, which is still young, yes, my dad had been in hospital, but we're knowing something's definitely different this time. You're taking us to somewhere you ain't never taken us to before. So when the doctor came in, I still see his face. He's saying, Miss White, we're sorry, Joe didn't make it. And I'm like, what you talking about? Joe didn't make it. My mom is like, still upset. She's like, I gotta be strong. I gotta be strong. And I'm listening to her, I'm thinking, no, you don't have to be strong. But when she died, I literally said the same thing. I gotta be strong. I gotta be strong. And so that's why I tell people, don't look at my strength. Yes, say, yes, you're doing something different and inspiring, but know that it can never be duplicated. You can never duplicate somebody's strength. You're just going to have to go through. And maybe you're at the beginning stages. Like I said, when my dad died, I was angry, upset. So grief is a process. Just understand that. And you may not be able to completely embrace grief as a gift or a loss that is really taking you to a place. And that's okay, because it is a process. Experience a loss, and something else happens in life, and it doesn't have to be a loss. Maybe it's just an aha moment. Because we can learn from other people who experience loss too. We can have those aha moments. Just know that your journey is your journey. And don't try to imitate or duplicate anyone else's what you perceive as strength. Get your own strength, because strength comes, as we know, and let me take it to the exercise, my training, which I hate when they say this. You're going to have to, in order for you to get, you're going to have to press that heavy, lift heavy weights. I'm not trying to hear that. Give me the 3-pound weights first. But they like, no, that's not going to do anything. You have to start with some good resistance. And that's what grief is. You have to accept sometimes that the load that you're going to carry is going to be heavy, but it's not going to be too heavy that you can't handle it. Just understand that.
Yeah. So when you mention the strength and you gave that good comparison into weightlifting, right? Because you have to build up your resistance to lift harder or lift heavier, sorry.
Mhm.
Where did you pull your strength from in each of those three deaths in your life?
Okay, so each of those times I'm very much rooted and grounded in spirituality. I was a church girl, always in church, always reading the Bible and prayer. And then your parents rooted you in that. So when I grew up, I have a sister who is 5 years younger than me. And when my sister was 4 years old, she had a rare cancer. And they only gave her so many, hours to live. They had called my parents in and said, she's going to pass away. And in that moment, my dad and my mom, like, nope, we're not accepting this. She's going to make it. And she was 4. So now she's 47. So I believe in the power of prayer. I believe in surrounding yourself with like-minded people of support, whether it be family, whether it be friends, whether it be your church. Now, at that time, therapy was not a word that we use, but now therapists, counselors, and so that's why I pull my ultimate strength from. And then also doing what I love. Now that I've been writing professionally since 2005, I always know that there's a lesson to my life that I need to write about to empower, inspire, and equip others who may be going through the same thing. And so writing is a resource for me now. And then also, and going back to what you said, doing that reevaluation. I reevaluate now, as I did with my mom, to say, okay, what is important? Me making that decision when I was returning back from Indianapolis and saying, I am not going to work for a year because I need to heal. That was like monumental for me because I've always worked. I've always, even though I have not been married, I've always been the breadwinner. I compare myself to, if you watch the movie Soul Food, I'm the Terry of the group. I'm always, because I want to work, because in case my siblings need some money, I always got it. So I was that mindset. So for me to come home and say, I am not going to work because I need healing, that was healing in itself. Healing in itself. So I know that I had grown, and Stefan's death had unleashed another level of not only who I was supposed to become, but supposed to heal in a healthy manner as.
And I can imagine it was probably kind of scary for you because you're coming out of a situation, always working, having these people around, and now you are, in a way, pushed to change. And let's be
Yeah.
honest, for a lot of people, change is very scary. And then you put that on top of death, which is even scarier. And then you add the fact that, okay, I'm going to do something that I haven't done before. I'm going to not work. I'm going to heal. We
Yes.
have people now, and you probably hear like the battle of the sexes, and I can't do this. You have people who can't even heal in areas that may not be as impactful.